But what he said was, you know, kind of what we said last week, you know, that the surname came about because people wanted to identify themselves separately. And what really spurred it on was when Christianity started to disperse, you know, outside of the small area it was in. And when it started to disperse, people began to accept Christ. And what they did in their accepting of Christ, they began to drop their pagan names. And because they were dropping their pagan names, no kind of other names around, they began to take on biblical names like Mark and Matthew and, you know, Levi and all the biblical names that they could think of, you know, John. And what happened was, as they continued to have kids, all of a sudden it became Mark the first, you know, Mark the 1, you're the first. Matthew the second, you know, you're John the third, you know, that, so it came like about that. So it began to go beyond that to where they began to take where they were from. You know, like if John was from Anders, okay, well he's got John, well he's from Anders, you know, okay, well, when John from Anders has a son, John Anderson. They began to use the place they were from, so that became another name, another place where you were from, you know. And then when they began to use things like this, they also used their names, their first names again, and they would either use put it as a prefix or a suffix, you know. So for instance, when you got to a place like Brian, when Brian had a son, the son of Brian became O'Brien. So that's where O'Brien came from. Gerald, this is interesting. Gerald had a son. It was Fitz. That's where Fitzgerald came from. You know? You can make it a prefix, or you can make it a suffix. You know, one of the names for suffixes was if Giles had a son, I thought he spelled Giles. He had a son, you know, he had a pet, so basically made it Gillette. So the name Gillette was born. You know, it made a prefix or a suffix. So that's how, you know, they began to form the surnames. You know, either using their name or the place they were from, or again, you know, from a landmark. You know, and some of the names of landmarks, we saw this on Jeopardy last night. Kirk. Kirk was a person who lived near a church. The church is called the Kirk. So that's where Kirk came from.
Con.
Wait, hold on. Can you say Kirk came from? Kirk?
Because it's one of those Netherlands languages. Danish, something like that. Kirk meant church. So a person who lived near a church, they became a Kirk.
So Doc is Kirk.
When Kirk had a son, Dunkirk. You know, so that's kind of the way it went through these things. So you got places, and then you had the occupation, which we talked about, you know, a tanner. Of course, fisher, because he was a fisherman. You know, Taylor, because he was a tailor.
Derek.
You know, Smith was a blacksmith. And then Wagner was a person who worked on wagons. You know, and then you had those that came from, they took from their looks, you know, and their appearances, you know, something about them. And this was interesting. Peel. That came from a person who had no hair. We call him Peel.
So Doc is Kirk Peel.
You guys are like this. Reed, spelled R-E-D or R-E-I-D, came from a red-headed person.
Well.
Ginger.
That's where Reed came from. And here's one of the funniest of all. Here's one of the funniest of all. Power
Okay.
came from those who were poor. That's what power came from. People, when poor people had, they were just, they took the whole R off. He was a word of poor, so it became power. That's where the name power came from, those who were poor. Wow. So it's interesting how these things came about, but he went all the way back to the beginning, you know, of the Bible, and just going with names and how they came about. And really, they took off in the 10th, 11th century. That's when people began to, you know, try and find and use surnames more and more. And that's particularly because Christianity started to version out, and people began to let go of all those pagan names that they had and take on other names, and then to begin to distinguish themselves between one another, either use the father's name and a prefix or suffix or where they're from and stuff like that. But that's how it came about. And there's some very interesting names out there how that came about. McDonald is the son of Donald.
McDonald.
Wow. Huh? Okay. That's that question. The second thing I want to address, it kind of came up Sunday morning in our teachers' meeting. And it kind of relates to our lesson tonight when we get back to chapter 13.
There's a tape over there.
I brought the tape out. Hopefully it's a whole. Yeah. I hope you can see this back there, but. Okay. We're going to get to our lesson in this, but the question kind of came up in our Sunday school meeting, and we kind of talked about it a little bit last week in light of what happened. You know, when President Trump made the official proclamation that Jerusalem would be the capital of the state of Israel. And the question, you know, what does that really mean? Is there any different historical reference and everything? And so what I kind of went back and did a little research. I don't know if you can see it, but it's right in this little area here. Here's Jerusalem here. Right down here in this little strait. Okay? And historically what happened after the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70, remember when Christ said this temple will be destroyed? After the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70, if you trace the history out, Jerusalem has always been in flux. It's been changing hands all the time. You know, and the largest span of time it spent was like 400 plus years in the Turkish Empire. You know, and that's where Palestine came about and all that. And back in 1917, it's like World War I or something like that, you know, the Turks fell, basically, and that land, this land here, came under British rule. And so the British established a treaty, and they established pretty much Palestine. But they said in the treaty that it would be home to the Jews as well. So there was this land here that they set up, and they set a treaty up, and so the Jews began to come back because Jews always want Jerusalem because that's their homeland. You know, it's been that way since the beginning of time, really. You know, when God made his home, his first temple built in, you know, Jerusalem. When Solomon built the temple, it was in Jerusalem. When God chose them, he called the Jews his people, and he settled them in Jerusalem. You know, the holy city was called. Jesus, you know, his death, burial, and resurrection occurred in Jerusalem. The church was born in Jerusalem. You know, when God would always come and rescue them, he established them back in Jerusalem. So to the Jews, you know, that is a place of you know, peace. That's their home. So they've always been saying that belongs to us. God gave it to us, it belongs to us. So through all these years of turmoil and everything like this, you know, they've been displaced and they've been looking for a home. And this is what God gave them, so that's why they're fighting for it. So when it came in 1917 between them and the Palestinians, you know, the Jews began to come back home, but the Palestinians were still a greater number of people. And so they had wars and rumors of wars going on from 1917 until what happened in 1948. The treaty that was established in 1917 ran out, and in 1948, the Jews that were there, through help of the President of the United States and a few other nations, got most of the nations to buy off that this should be called the State of Israel. So it was renamed the State of Israel. Palestinians didn't like that, but it was renamed the State of Israel. 2 years after that, in 1949, they had another war. And what happened was, in that war, even though it was called the State of Israel, it got divided pretty much in half between the Jews and the Palestinians. And what happened was, the Jews got this half here, the Palestinians got this half here, where Jerusalem is. And if you look, they still call it the Green Line War. That green line is still the dividing line that all the countries in the world recognize. So Jerusalem is in the area controlled by Palestine, while the Jews have the other side of it, where Tel Aviv is. Okay. Every country that recognized it as the State of Israel put their embassy in Tel Aviv. There's not an embassy at all in Jerusalem. The United States is the only country in the world that's going to say, now we're going to put our embassy in Jerusalem. Why? Because 30 some odd years ago, Congress voted to do that. Yeah. I mean, Trump's just the first one who says, I'm going to actually do it. Every other president is saying, well, we're going to do it. You know, it's still so unstable over there, we can't do it. He's going to do it anyway. Now, the problem with putting the capital in Jerusalem, if you're a Palestinian, what does that tell you? Wait, I'm a Palestinian. I live in this. This is my home.
Yes.
You can call the State of Israel all you want to, but this is my home. You're going to call this now, you're going to call this the capital of Israel, which means it's actually the capital of the Jews. That's why it's been in a state of turmoil ever since. And for him to say now he's going to put the capital in Jerusalem is only going to lead to much more bitterness and much more warfare. And you know, I'm not a doomsayer and I'm not a prognosticator or anything like that, but I would just think a lot of what we're going to see is really not going to be over there. It's going to be over here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
It's going to be over here. But that's what's going on, and that's the reason why, you know, there's such importance placed on that, because of all the history, you know, and the Jews really want that. And the thing is, when in 1948, when they made it a state of Israel, you know, to let the Jews go back, it was a 10-to-1 ratio. They're like 10 million Palestinians, 1 million Jews. And it's still like a 3-to-1 ratio there now, Palestinian versus Jews. So right around Jerusalem, you know, it's a small enclave where they mix, but generally they don't get along. And they stay far apart from one another. So you're going to see a lot of heightened, you know, issues going on over there. But that's what makes it so hostile. Now, the question then what came up was, you know, is there any biblical prophecy behind this? And my answer was, it depends on how you interpret what's written. Because there are some prophecies, you know, and one of them we'll read tonight where God says he's going to reestablish them. The question is, has that happened, or is it yet to happen? You know, because when you look at Revelation, you know, there's a couple of prophecies in Revelation that you read, and the main one that people hold on to is what's in Revelation 21. When he says he saw a new heaven, a new earth come down, and they call it a what? New Jerusalem. That's why they want it. They still kind of feel it's supposed to be theirs, and if it's going to be new, it's supposed to be it's theirs. I mean, the whole idea of the fact that it says, wait a minute, this earth will burn up, this elements and everything, and the ferment is going to destroy this earth. You know, we're not going to be here anymore. It's going to be something new. You know, why do you still want to hold fast to this patch of land if it ain't going to be here no more? So I said, it all depends on your interpretation of what's written. But that's why they're still fighting for that land.
So they're taking it literal.
Some are taking it literal. Some are saying the prophecy's not been fulfilled. You know, that God's going to reestablish Jerusalem as the capital of the world before Christ comes. So that's why they're still fighting for that. Okay?
But I thought the disciples asked Jesus that question when he says, will you return
Right.
Jerusalem?
Right. They did.
Yeah.
In Acts. Will you restore Jerusalem? And he says, not for you to know the times. In fact, this will or won't happen. The idea is for you to believe and accept who God is and what his son has done. There's some things we just don't need to understand. Okay. Anything else on this? I'll leave that up there for a second because I want to get back to where it fits in our lesson tonight. We're in